The air was thick with silence when the car pulled into the driveway. Mark Reynolds sat behind the wheel, staring straight ahead at the two-story house that until now had been his sanctuary. Neat, orderly, and quiet. That was about to change. In the passenger seat, Grace Reynolds sat stiffly, arms crossed, earbuds in. She hadn't said more than a sentence since they left the cemetery. Mark cleared his throat. "We're here." Grace didn't respond. He tried again. "I got your room ready. Thought you might like the one with the bigger window." Still nothing. She opened the door, stepped out, and slammed it just hard enough to make a point. Mark winced. He followed her inside, watching as she carried her single duffel bag up the stairs like she was being led to a prison cell. She didn't look around, didn't ask where anything was, just disappeared behind the door that would now be her room. He stood there in the hallway, rubbing the back of his neck. So much for first impressions. The house still smelled like lemon cleaner and wood polish. Mark had spent the whole weekend vacuuming, scrubbing the baseboards, and changing the light bulbs. He had even Googled how to make your home more welcoming for a teenager. Apparently, none of it mattered. He walked into the kitchen and stared at the 2 plates he'd already set out for dinner. Tacos. He remembered that being her favorite from when she was 10. Was it still? He didn't know. Grace hadn't lived with him full-time since the divorce. Weekend visits had faded into once a month, brunches, and lately just the occasional text from her mom's phone. "Grace has a piano recital Tuesday. You should come if you're free." But now, after her mother's sudden death from a stroke 2 weeks ago, the arrangement wasn't optional. Grace was here to stay. He sighed and sat down at the kitchen table, unsure if he should call her down or wait her out. A few minutes later, the answer came. She walked in, hoodie on, sleeves pulled over her hands, and sat without a word. "Earbuds still in. Tacos," he said, sliding a plate toward her. She blinked at him, pulled out one earbud, and said, "Seriously?" "What?" She looked at the food. "I'm not 10. It's food." She rolled her eyes and picked at the tortilla without taking a bite. Mark exhaled slowly. "Look, I know this isn't easy. For either of us." She didn't respond. "I want us to be able to talk. About your mom. Or anything, really." She put the earbud back in. Conversation. Over after dinner, Grace disappeared again. Mark cleaned up alone, scrubbing the dishes harder than necessary. He went to bed early, but sleep didn't come. Every sound in the house felt sharper, louder. The creak of the floorboards upstairs, the faint thump of music through the wall, the memory of his ex-wife's voice telling him, "She's not easy, Mark, but she's worth it." He hadn't believed her, not fully, not when he'd missed recitals, skipped weekends, and convinced himself Grace didn't care whether he was around. Now, she was his responsibility. No, his daughter. And he didn't even know how to start. The next morning, Mark was already in the kitchen making pancakes when Grace shuffled in, hair a mess, hoodie still on. "Morning," he said. She gave him a grunt and reached for the fridge. "I made pancakes." "I don't eat sugar," she said, flatly, grabbing a yogurt. "Since when?" She shrugged and leaned against the counter. Mark bit the inside of his cheek. "I could make eggs." "I'm not hungry," she said, already walking out. He closed his eyes and counted to 5. That afternoon, Grace started school. Mark had already registered her at Brookview High, arranged the bus schedule, and printed her class list. He even offered to drive her. She declined without looking up from her phone. When she got home, she went straight to her room. That night, she didn't come to dinner. He knocked on her door. No answer. "Grace, food's ready." A beat of silence. Then, "I already ate." He waited a moment, heart sinking, before walking away. By the end of the first week, the house felt like a battlefield, one where the only weapons were silence, sarcasm, and slammed doors. Mark spent evenings researching teen behavior after parental loss and how to talk to your kid who hates you. Most of the articles sounded like therapy brochures or lectures from people who didn't understand his daughter or him. On Friday night he tried again. He knocked once before walking into the living room where she sat, scrolling on her phone. "Hey," he said, "I was thinking of watching a movie. Maybe something funny. You want to join?" "No. I was thinking Back to the Future. It's a classic." She didn't look up. "You mean the movie where the guy tries to date his mom?" Mark blinked. "That's not really the takeaway." Hard. "Pass." She got up and walked past him without another word. He turned off the TV without hitting play. Later that night he found a small box in the corner of her room while folding laundry. It was filled with sheet music. At the top was a crumpled program, Spring Recital, featuring Grace L. Morgan. Solo piano. The date, 2 years ago. His name wasn't in the guest section. He hadn't even known it happened. He stood there a long time, holding the paper in his hand, heart heavy with guilt. Maybe she wasn't just angry. Maybe she was hurt. The next day, Mark took a detour after grocery shopping. He drove to a small music shop tucked between a bookstore and a dry cleaner, walked inside and browsed until he found what he was looking for. A portable keyboard, full size. Weighted keys. Simple, but decent. The sales guy helped him carry it out and load it into the trunk. Back home, he left it in the hallway outside her room. No note, no announcement, just a gesture, a start. He was in the kitchen later, chopping vegetables for dinner, when he heard it, a soft, hesitant chord. Then another, then the beginning of a melody. He set the knife down and leaned against the counter, listening. It was something classical, a piece he didn't know by name, but recognized from somewhere, maybe a movie, maybe a memory. The sound wasn't perfect. She'd missed a few notes, but it was beautiful, and it wasn't silence. He smiled, just a little. Mark sat across the table from his daughter, trying to act casual. As he stirred cream into his coffee, Grace munched dry cereal from a bowl with no milk, her earbuds tucked in as always. The keyboard he'd left outside her door 2 days ago had disappeared, he assumed, into her room, and that night he'd heard her playing again. It hadn't lasted long, just 10 or 15 minutes, but it was something. He thought about saying something now, complimenting her, asking what the song was. Instead, he cleared his throat and said, "So, any plans this weekend?" She looked up briefly, one earbud sliding loose. "Why?" "Just wondering. Maybe we could do something. You know, hang out." She blinked at him, unimpressed. "You want to hang out?" He forced a smile. "Sure. We used to like going to the arcade. You remember? I was 9. Okay, bad example." He backpedaled. "Well, maybe something else? A movie? Ice cream?" "I'm not 5 either. I didn't say you were." She stood, grabbed her bowl and dumped the crumbs in the sink. "I have homework." It wasn't even 8 a.m. on a Saturday. By noon, Mark was outside mowing the lawn, while Grace remained a ghost behind closed curtains. He pushed the mower in careful rows, more out of habit than necessity. His mind was elsewhere, on parenting forums, memories of missed birthdays, and the quiet way Grace had closed herself off like a vault. He thought about calling Eva, an old friend from college who now worked as a school counselor, but the idea of asking for help made something tighten in his chest. He was supposed to be the parent, the adult, the one who figured it out. After lunch, he knocked on her door. No answer. He knocked again. "Hey, I was thinking about making lasagna tonight. Your mum used to make it, remember?" Silence. Then finally a reply, muffled, annoyed. "I'm not hungry." "You don't have to be hungry to eat," he tried to joke. No laugh. Just footsteps, then the unmistakable click of the lock turning. She never used to lock her door. That night, he made the lasagna anyway. He set a plate on the table for her. She didn't come down. At 10 p.m., when he went to bed, her plate was still there, cold and untouched. The next day, a small shift. Mark was on the couch with his laptop when Grace wandered into the kitchen, hair up, wearing pajama pants and a faded hoodie that used to belong to her mom. He tried not to stare too obviously. "Morning," he said. Casual. She made a non-committal noise and poured herself some cereal again, this time with milk. Progress. He glanced at her while typing. "That song you played the other night. It was really nice." She froze, spoon halfway to her mouth. He continued, careful. "Was it Debussy?" "It was Chopin," she said. "Oh, sorry." A pause. She added, "Nocturne in E minor. Opus 72. He smiled. "Beautiful piece." After school, unexpectedly. The bus had broken down and the school called him. She got in the car, silent. He drove without talking. Halfway home, she broke the silence. "You missed my 5th grade spelling bee." Mom was so mad. He blinked. "What?" She stared out the window. "I won. I spelled iridescent. You weren't there." Mark gripped the steering wheel harder than necessary. "I didn't know. I think I was traveling for work then." "I know." She didn't sound angry, just tired. "I'm sorry," he said. She didn't answer, but she didn't turn up the music either. That weekend, he knocked gently on her door. She opened it this time. "What?" He held up 2 movie tickets. "Thought you might want to see something." "The Sound Between Us. It's that artsy one about the deaf violinist you mentioned last month." Her eyes narrowed. "You remember that?" "Barely, but I checked showtimes. It's playing tonight." A long pause. Then, shrug. "Fine." They sat in near silence the whole movie, but Mark saw her eyes go glassy in one scene. She wiped her face quickly, pretending it didn't happen. Afterward, in the car, she surprised him. "That was good." He smiled. "Yeah?" She nodded. "Still doesn't mean I like you." He laughed, and for the first time, she didn't roll her eyes, just smiled faintly. The piano stopped mid-note. Mark paused in the hallway, holding a basket of laundry. It wasn't like Grace to stop in the middle of a song, especially not the one she'd been practicing on repeat for the past 3 days. He listened for a moment, but heard nothing more. No footsteps, no creaking chair. Just silence. Something was wrong. He knocked lightly on the door. "Grace?" Nothing. He knocked again, then slowly pushed the door open. She was sitting at the keyboard, her back to him, shoulders hunched, her hands rested on her lap. "Hey," he said gently, "everything okay?" She didn't answer. He stepped inside, setting the laundry basket down. "Do you want to talk about it?" "I messed up," she said quietly. Mark tilted his head. "What do you mean?" "I was supposed to record this for a college audition," she said, voice thin. "Early admission. Berkeley summer program." He blinked. "You're applying already?" She nodded. "Mum was helping me. Before. I was supposed to submit it last week. I missed the deadline." Mark sat on the edge of her bed. "I didn't know." "You didn't ask." The words stung more than he expected. "Grace, I'm not perfect." "No kidding." He took a breath. "I'm trying. I want to support you. If this program matters, we'll find a way. I can reach out, explain the situation." "They don't care," she snapped, standing up suddenly. "You think just because you show up now, everything's okay? That you can fix it with lasagna and movie tickets?" He stood too, surprised by her sudden heat. "I never said that." She stepped back. "No, but you act like it, like you get some kind of medal for trying." "Grace, you weren't there." Her voice cracked. "You weren't there when Mum was sick. You weren't there for her last recital. You weren't there for me." His heart pounded. "I didn't know how to be there. You didn't want to." They stared at each other. Her eyes were glassy with unshed tears. His hands shook. "I made mistakes," he said quietly. "Big ones. I thought I was giving your mum space, that I was just bad at this and she was better, and yeah, I pulled away." She laughed bitterly. "That's convenient. I didn't stop loving you. You don't even know me." He looked at her, really looked, and realized she was right. They didn't speak for the rest of the day. Grace stayed locked in her room. Mark sat on the couch, guilt settling in like concrete. That night, he opened a box he hadn't touched in years. Inside were photo albums, old report cards, drawings she'd made when she was 6, and an envelope he didn't recognize, addressed in his ex-wife's handwriting. Inside was a letter. "Mark, if you're reading this, it means something's happened. And Grace is with you now. She's a storm, I know, but she's also full of light. And she wants to be known, even if she acts like she doesn't. You weren't the perfect husband, but you were never a bad man, just a scared one. Don't be scared now. Show up, keep showing up, even when it's hard. She's worth it. Love." Rachel Mark sat there, eyes stinging, the letter shaking in his hands. Then he stood, walked upstairs and knocked on her door. Again and again. She finally opened it, eyes red. He held out the letter. "I should have read this sooner," he said. She didn't take it, just stood there. He said, "I don't deserve your trust, but I'm going to earn it, if it takes months, if it takes years." She didn't say anything, but she stepped back and let him in. Grace didn't cry, not when she read the letter, not when she handed it back to Mark and said quietly, she always believed in people more than they deserved, and not when she asked if she could go to the music room at school that weekend to finish recording her audition. 2 weeks late, but still determined. What she did instead was open the smallest door between them. And that, for Mark, was enough. Saturday morning they sat together in the small studio at Brookview High. Grace's hands hovered above the piano keys, poised but uncertain. Mark stood behind the camera, trying to be unobtrusive. He didn't speak. He didn't move. He barely breathed. The red light blinked. She began to play, and suddenly the room was full, not just with notes, but with everything that had ever gone unsaid between them. Her pain, her strength, her love for a mother she'd lost, and the tentative hope for a father she was beginning to rediscover. When the final note faded, neither of them spoke, but she turned to look at him and smiled. Later, as they walked to the car, she asked, "Did it sound okay?" Mark nodded. "More than okay." Grace paused before getting in. "You think I still have a shot?" He opened the door for her. "If they hear what I heard, definitely." She climbed in, this time without slamming the door. In the weeks that followed, small changes took root. They started making dinner together, sometimes with more smoke than success. Grace began leaving her door open a crack. Mark started learning how to listen more than he spoke, and once, when she walked in on him fumbling with a tutorial video on YouTube titled "Chopin for Beginners," she laughed, a real laugh, and said, "God, you're hopeless." But she showed him where middle C was, and didn't leave the room. The acceptance email arrived in early May. Grace didn't scream or jump around. She just read it quietly at the kitchen table, then looked up with wide eyes. "I got in." Mark blinked. "Seriously?" She turned the screen to show him. He didn't know what to say, so he said the only thing he truly felt. "I'm proud of you." She bit her lip. "Mom would have been too." "I know." Then, after a pause, she added, "Thanks for showing up." His eyes stung. He nodded. "I'll keep doing that," she smiled. "You better." On the first day of summer, Mark dropped her off at the train station with her suitcase, a portable keyboard, and a new backpack they'd picked out together. She hesitated at the gate, then turned. "Hey," she said, "yeah? I'm glad it's you, even if it took a while." Mark smiled, swallowing hard. "Me too." She hugged him, tight, unexpected and real. Then she was gone. Back home, the house was quiet again, but this time it didn't feel empty. On the fridge, her audition letter was stuck beneath a magnet that read, "Believe in the process." In the hallway, the keyboard still sat under the window, waiting, and upstairs, her door stood wide open. For the first time, Mark didn't feel like he was waiting for something to break. He was waiting to grow, and now, finally, they were both learning how together.